Welcome to match 2. We have an interesting hand that I am inclined to keep on the draw, especially with double zero visions and a land that casts them. I think we're just gonna keep. It's not the perfect hand, but it's a pretty good hand, I think. Especially with the double goif, so we're just gonna fetch Breeding Pool into zero visions and go from there. Ooh, Bogles. That might actually be another pretty bad matchup. So we're not doing too well with the matchups, especially given that we are getting decks that you don't expect to get paired against once in a regular tournament. Like the likelihood of, like the average amount of playing against one of those decks in, say, a day one of a Grand Prix or whatever, it's probably below 1. Because you might sometimes play against Bogle 1 round out of 9 in a day 1 of a GP, but there will definitely be more 9 round tournaments where you don't play against Bogles, and even more so with A-Track, but sometimes you just get the bad luck and run into them all the time. I mean, that's like the thing with a diverse format like Modern. It's just so diverse that sometimes you just play against weird fringe decks every round and your deck happens to be soft to them, then you're just suddenly out of contention, which can be pretty frustrating actually. But I mean, you still probably played the best, the right deck, if your deck is beating the decks you expect to play one or more than once during 9 rounds of a tournament. But yeah, I think it matters in Modern to have a deck that's very well rounded and has a decent shot against the fringe decks as well, while also being beating the top decks. But yeah, we are basically dead here. I mean, we can basically just concede here. And it also, like, doesn't hurt to hedge against these fringe decks, which is, for example, why I'm running Kasali Bright Mage over Ancient Grudge, and why I'm running a Fracturing Gust over a Creeping Corrosion, because these things actually help here while the other cards don't. So pass is pretty bad. Pyroclasm can sometimes kill their Bogle, which is pretty good. Our combo is so-so, Remand's pretty bad. So I think that's how we wanna roll. So let's see if we can win game 2 and game 3. But yeah, it's not that easy to find a deck that does well enough against the top decks while also being like powerful and versatile enough to beat most of the fringe decks. That's kind of the tricky part in Modern. But I think this is one of the decks that has a lot of raw power against a lot of the fringe decks. But it happens to be that Bogles is one of the matchups where our combo is actually worse than the twin combo, because we can't deal infinite damage, so we have a hard time winning through multiple attacks with lifelink, or even through a big Vigilance Bogle. Yeah, that's a pretty good hand, so we're gonna keep. So talking about fetch lands, I think we just wanna go and fetch Stomping Ground with this, and most likely Basic Island with this. Since our Hierarch is a pretty reliable source of white, and Knight and the 2 Kasalis are basically the only white cards we have post-sideboard in that matchup, so we don't need much white anyway. But having double blue for, say, Negate and 0 visions is pretty good. So the point here is I think we have to play knight because he can't play coronet, and since we only have one counter we better make it count, so we basically want to try and negate his coronet on turn 3 and hope that we can get our knight big enough with the fetch lands to actually stop the Bogle with a bunch of random enchantments. That's like one of the things we have going here, that knight can grow so big that it can actually like fight or hold off a Bogle for quite a while. So I think we actually wanna attack here, and I think just gonna fetch a tapped hallowed fountain and use the hierarch in case he tries some weird past the exile move for the zero visions. Bottom that, and another negate that's actually pretty good for us here. So I think attacking for 5 when he most likely swings for like 3 or 4, actually 6 even, is pretty good. The cards we want to stop here basically are Coronet and Ethereal Armor. That's the 2 cards that matter. I would assume he doesn't have Ethereal Armor unless he drew one off the top, because he would definitely have played it over Hyena Umbra while we are tapped out, because it makes the Bogle bigger and gets through our counter spells. And we can even Snapcast the Zero Visions next turn plus negate, which is nice. Okay, the charm blockers, good that we have Kasich, so we just don't attack next turn and then fetch Kasich. So we just fetch basic forest here. Play Snapcaster. Flashbacks, Serum Visions. Oh, Kasali. That's looking good. Actually, we can try and just combo next turn, because his board is like fairly small. We might not even have to combo, because we can just get knight to a 7, 8, and then 9 plus Kasich for 13. Can get it to 13 power. And he has 6 toughness, so he would not die. So we basically just have to combo, but that's fine. So we can just untap this. Get some extra mana. Fetch here. Tap for a green. And then let's start digging. So, Flourishant, untap knight. Okay, he realized that he's dead. Yeah, that's like one of the things with Bogle. The deck sometimes just draws the wrong part of the deck, a bunch of the small auras, a bunch of the Bogles and lands, and then it doesn't do anything. It's fairly dependent on getting Coronet and or Ethereal Armor. So let's see if we can pull it off again in game 3. That's a pretty decent hand again. Cheap early counter magic is definitely what we want. We can basically denial his, like, force spike his second turn 2 play, then either play Goyf or try and negate his coronet and then play Goyf. Sorry about that. Oh, he mulligans to 5, that's really good for us. That makes our hand even better. So basically by the time we denial and negate something, he should be out of relevant action. And Kasali makes his life even harder. So I think I will probably just play this fetch basic island and use this for Sacred Foundry and this for our green source. That's perfect. That's exactly the card we want to counter. The thing is, we can even basically play Goyf now that we have the Kasali. Just because we can even, like, if his last hand is Coronet, we can just kill the Rancor to kill the Coronet as well. So we don't even have to keep negate up here and get on the board. That's actually pretty good. But still, we have the Kasali, so we are fine. As long as he doesn't draw another first strike hour. That is pretty good, especially we don't even have a basic in our deck here. Wow, we might actually just lose that game. That's pretty unreal. I think we wanna do this here. So we take 1 damage less and potentially can Zero Visions into a Knight. Or another Kasali. Yep, we just die. That's ridiculous. I wonder if playing that Goyf was a mistake, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't. Because, like, if we leave open the gate there, he plays Rancor, we counter the Umbra, take 5, have 1 life more, then the other way around, then play Goyf, then he passes the Goyf, hits us for another 5. Yeah, maybe that would have made a difference. Because then instead of negate we would have a Kasali to trade. And maybe the Bogle would be dead by now. Interesting. But for that he basically needs to have exactly what he had. I think it's kind of bad for us to leave negate up there and pass, and he doesn't play anything meaningful in our negate. We basically have to negate anything he casts. if we negate there, if we leave negate mana open there, and if he doesn't have anything that we negate, we basically wasted a turn, which is pretty bad. So I still think that it probably is right to play the Goyf there, but we just like got unlucky, but I'm not entirely sure. Okay, short but surprisingly interesting games in terms of like decisions, and also seeing that how handily we won game 1 against his 6 or 7 cards, and how surprisingly easy we lost with a seemingly good hand against his 5, just because of how things lined up. Okay, see you in the next match.